Welcome to episode 12 of the MatchKitCast with me, Ben Kopinski. Today's guest is another Benjamin. It is Beni Steffen from Switzerland, and he is an Olympic fencer. Today we're going to talk about how he got into the sport of fencing, how of course he has thrived in it over the years, and what his plans are heading to Tokyo 2021.
Let's go, yo! These people are running off at the mouth.
Hi, Beni. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Welcome.
Now,
Looking
Beni,
forward to this.
you are on our MatchKit profile, and something I always love about when people do sign up to the MatchKit profile is that they list their achievements. You know, it's a nice way of getting to know. And obviously, I didn't know a whole bunch about fencing until you got onto the platform. I've enjoyed doing the research around it, and of course, you are a celebrated athlete in your own right. You've been to the World Champs many times, and been particularly successful in a team competition. 2018, you guys were the World Champs. 4-time European Championships. You've been the 8-time Swiss champion in fencing, if I'm not saying corrected. And then I would say probably the highlight of your career was the 4th that you had in Rio in the individuals in 2016.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. I've had other nice successes at the Universiade where I won the gold in Belgrade. That was also quite a highlight because in fencing, a lot of athletes compete at the Universiade, so it's almost the same competition as the Olympics. So that was quite a big success as well.
So, Beni, I mean, the obvious first question is, how did you get into a sport like fencing? I mean, you grew up in Europe. Obviously, football was going to be a big thing. There's various other distractions. What was so special about fencing that made you so drawn to that sport?
Well, actually, it wasn't my idea. I have a twin sister, and I was a very active kid when I was young, and probably my parents wanted me to try some sports. And the first sport I actually did was track and field together with my twin sister. But back then in the area where we lived, they didn't have any special section for girls, so my twin sister had to participate with me and the other boys, and she didn't really like it, and I wasn't very fascinated by what we were doing back then as well, so we said, yeah, let's try something else. Then I tried swimming, more of a South African sport, but I didn't like it because we had an outdoor pool and it wasn't always that warm, and I was a very, very skinny boy, so I was always freezing, and so I didn't like that one either. And then my father said, hey, let's go and try fencing, because actually, when he was a kid, he always wanted to fence, but his parents were quite poor, so they didn't have the money, so he wasn't allowed to go fencing. He played football, and I was a bit hesitant first, and I also have an older brother who went there first, and he tried fencing, and I always went with my father to pick him up from fencing, and then, of course, I got more and more interested, and one day I said, hey, I want to fence against my brother, and so that's how I started fencing, and I'm the only one left of the family now. We were 3 siblings, we all fenced, but I'm the only one left now.
What was it about fencing that made you want to kick on, though? Like, maybe think of it as something you could do, obviously, throughout your life, and obviously something you could do at the highest possible level. But what were some of the sort of like big characteristics around that happening in your life?
I had success from the beginning, basically, in my categories. I won a lot of competitions, and we were a nice, cool, young training group with a young coach who was very motivated. So it was not only the fencing that kept me there, but also the companionship and the fun we had in the trainings. But I think afterwards, of course, when you grow up and you become older and you have to put more and more effort in it, it was actually 2 things. I always wanted to compete at the Olympics, and therefore I knew I had to train a lot. And the thing that actually fascinates me about fencing the most is that it has so many different aspects in which you need to be good at, that challenge you, and there are so many different types of fencers, and you look at one fencer, especially if you don't know the fencing, and think, how can this guy be good? But he is just very, 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 very highly skilled in one area, and if he can play that out, he's very strong. And then we have the very athletic fencer. We have one guy that is a tactical fencer and can challenge the opponents like this. And yeah, I think the big task as a fencer is to find the right balance between the different areas that you need to be good at, and use that and find basically your own weapon to defeat your opponents. And it's so different in every athlete.
Now, if you look at it from a sport, it's a very sort of simplistic sport. It's obviously been around for many, 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 many years. You have to hit someone before someone hits you, essentially. So, I mean, if you look at your build as such, like you're very tall and slender and quite athletic. What are some of the physical sort of things that you focus on in training in order to maintain this, and just from a successful point of view, what is most required of you from a physical sort of nature?
Physical sort of nature, I'd say anaerobic endurance is very important, because especially in épée fencing, which is a bit different than the other two disciplines, we have 30 to 1 minute sections where we fence and we put a high rhythm, and then the goal is to hit within that minute. So you have to recover well after one hit and get back to the starting line and then start again. So that's one thing. And then obviously you have to be very fast, because once you recognize a moment, or once you start your attack, you have to go all the way. And in the best situation, you can surprise your opponent, but usually your opponent is not sleeping and he's ready. So velocity is very important to actually hit your opponent with the action that you would like to do.
With it being a combat sport, obviously, going into your fights, are they called fights, or is there a better way of describing your combat?
We say bouts.
You say bouts,
yeah,
okay.
But you can also call them fights.
Okay. Yeah. So I know, obviously, with all combat sports, you always do a little bit of research about who your opponent's going to be, strengths, weaknesses, game plans, that kind of stuff. Would the same obviously still apply to fencing, or is it more about your own strengths and weaknesses that you're looking to kind of push?
You're actually asking a good question, because I think it requires both. Of course, you look at tendencies that your opponents have, and you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, but in the end, it all comes down to play out your game and make the opponent react to your games, and so that you can actually show your strengths and use them against your opponent. You look at tendencies and you try to use them, but in the end, it's your game that you have to play. Otherwise, if you only react all the time and just try to find an answer to what the other guy does, when it's a tight bout, it's not the right way to go.
Now, we touched on briefly at the start of this interview around your performance in the Rio Games 2016. You did finish fourth there in the individuals, obviously so close to the podium, one of those cherished medals. Now, Tokyo 2020, we all know what happens with that. It's going to be Tokyo 2021. Everything's been postponed. The world has gone, well, let's just say on hold for a while. What are you looking to kind of draw from 4 years ago, and what you're looking to achieve now in 2021 in Tokyo?
What is a bit special in fencing concerning the Olympics is that, I mean, not only is it a sport that is not so well known in the world, but I mean, in Switzerland, we've had a lot of success. You mentioned it, but it's still not a popular sport. And that makes it very, very special for us at the Olympics, because that is our only spotlight that we have. And we're even more so in a spotlight because when it comes to the Olympics, the media and all of them, they say, yeah, the fencers, they can do something. They expect a medal from us. So it's the only time we are in the spotlight and we're put under pressure, and because we're a sport that always has had success. And for me, that's also very motivating, because I know I go there and it's that day where I have to be ready. It's that special day where I have to perform well. And of course, that gives you pressure, but in a way, it's also a nice thing, because, you can really it's a challenge, and I take that challenge. And with me in Rio, it was actually my first Olympics as an athlete, being 34. And for me, it was very essential that I start well into that competition. And I was nervous before. I knew it might be my only chance, because back then, before I went to the Olympics, I hadn't known if I might continue afterwards. So I did a lot of mental preparation, and I think I succeeded in performing well. And after Rio, I had a phase where nothing worked. I fenced badly. I struggled with myself. I had a lot of changes in the team, also in the staff with the coaches, and I didn't feel comfortable anymore. And after 2 years, I said, okay, what should I do? Should I stop or should I continue? And then we had the World Championships title, and then I knew we are a competitive team, even though we have a new team. Half of the team changed after Rio. And then I said, I can't leave the team alone. I want to qualify for Tokyo. And since then, actually, my focus has only been on Tokyo. I think I haven't enjoyed all the competitions since then as much as I used to before Rio, because I knew I'm actually only fencing because of Tokyo. And therefore, I know that's the competition again where I want to perform well. And that's my challenge again. I have this competition, 1 day individual competition, 1 day team competition, 2 chances for a medal, and yeah, I'm going to take it.
So Benny, obviously being now in your latter 30s, it's fair to say this could possibly be your last big tournament or your last big moment as an international fencer?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Short, sweet answer there. I mean, you're very much a man of focus, and I can see everything is primed towards this. Benny, thank you so much for your time today. I wish you nothing but the best in all your preparations going ahead to Tokyo. And of course, if you want to see Benny's profile on the MatchKit platform, matchkit.co/BENI_STEFFEN. Now, scrolling through here, you'll obviously be able to see all Benny's social platforms, and you can plot his journey towards Tokyo for 2021. And Benny, yeah, thank you so much for being on the chat with us today. And I look forward to cheering on. I'm going to learn a bit more about the fencing, and I know exactly what all the épée and all the other color terminology is. At the very least, I will be the most informed fencer here in South Africa, the most informed fencing fan on the back of your success.
That's cool. Yeah, good to know.
Cool, man. Thanks so much.